Okay, good morning.
Good morning, too.
Yes, we have myself here with Miss Karen Woodmansey, and this is Counseling versus Coaching. So, Karen, we're so glad that you can hop on the CCSD FYI series, which is just a series of programs aimed to give some psychoeducation and information to the ECU students, faculty, staff, or anyone who's interested in learning more about mental health topics. And so this is a special one because the wellness offers coaching, which is an amazing resource that I think complements counseling very well. And we've kind of run into experiences where we realize the distinguishment between counseling and coaching is one that I think people can stand to learn a lot more about. So if you want to just briefly share before we jump in here how you've connected to FYI and what coaching, where that kind of plays a role for you in your work at ECU.
Sure. Maya, thanks so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. And I agree. I think that there's a very strong need to, delineate where the differences are and where the similarities are too. So I am Karen Woodmansey. I'm the Assistant Director of Wellness at Campus Rec and Wellness. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach, as well as I've been a health coach for well over 10 years. So I've seen this really interesting progression of the field and, the transformation really of the field. So I'm excited to be able to bring coaching to the students and the employees of ECU because we are no longer of the mindset that we are the experts and we tell you what to do, because we, as the industry, a collective we, on the whole, have learned based on some pretty solid research that the evidence shows that people don't want to be told what to do, and that they will be able, with some guidance, and that's what coaching is for, to help others figure out what's best for them. Because as coaches, we truly believe that the wisdom is already inside. It is innately there. So so we're offering coaching to students and employees. I'll turn it back to Maya.
Okay, that's great. And I think the overlap there is we also encourage students to recognize that they have all the tools really that they need to navigate through mental health concerns and various obstacles and challenges that they face within them. And we're kind of the guide and the vessel to help highlight that. And so we'll jump right in our presentation here. I'll go ahead and share. All right, let's see. All right, let's make this big. Okay, I think I'm on the, let me get a different page here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Here we go. All right. So we're with counseling versus coaching, and this is an understanding of the differences between mental health counseling and well-being coaching. And again, myself, I'm Maya Pittman. I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor in the counseling center. I've been here for 6 years. And Karen, I'll let you explain your letters there.
Sure, thank you. That is the National Board Certification for Health and Wellness Coaching.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things we want to start with is just kind of a rundown what we're going to talk about. And I always kind of think about it as a who, what, when, where, and how. And being able to answer those questions or those thoughts based on how they pertain to counseling and how they pertain to coaching. And so we're going to start with the who here. And I'll begin with the Counseling Center. So the Counseling Center is what we call multidisciplinary. So what that means is we have an array of different counseling professionals that can provide therapeutic and counseling services. So we have licensed clinical addiction specialists, and those are our counselors who specialize in helping students with substance use issues or disorders involving alcohol and other drugs. And we've got licensed clinical social workers and licensed marriage and family therapists. Social workers, and we're familiar with the social work that is involved with being a social worker and how they're really great at connecting people to resources and case management, and they have that skill of counseling and training as well. Licensed marriage and family therapists a lot of times deal more so with families and couples and the issues that they bring there. And while we do not offer family or couples counseling, there are other resources on campus that do, such as the Navigate Clinic. But those counselors have a unique view in terms of helping students who may be presenting with family issues or relationship issues. Then our licensed clinical mental health counselors, which is myself, who have a specialized training specifically in clinical mental health counseling. So that's everything from major severe mental health disorders all the way down to the lower end of the spectrum of stressors and everyday presenting problems. Licensed psychologists, which also are the same, and many of them are research-based. And then lastly, we have our screeners and case managers. Now, when you do enter the counseling centers, our screeners are those that you come in contact with first, and they're able to assess your specified need as it pertains to counseling. And the case managers as well can help you with referrals, making sure you get to the right place, which could include wellness or well-being coaching. And so we really appreciate what the screeners and case managers do as the gatekeepers of our center as well.
Okay, so who coaches? So coaches are certified. The coaching certifications that we have here at ECU at this moment happen to be ACE certified health coaches, the National Board certificate for coaching, excuse me, and which is really the highest level at this point of certifications. And then we also have certified peer educators, which are student employees. And so there are definitely different ways to connect with people. But all coaches believe that their clients are whole and resourceful and creative. So when you work with a health coach, that coach has truly absorbed this idea so that they can help guide the client to seek self-directed, lasting behavior change. And I talked a little bit about self-directed a few minutes ago when I said that people don't want to be told what to do. So the coach is your guide. And I like to call the coach if you've ever been bowling, I like to call the coach the bumper pads that they put in the gully on the edges of the lane. So the client throws the ball down to the pins and the coach sort of bumps you back into the lane and keeps you on the track. But it's your lane, it's your bowling ball, and you get to throw it. So we align with the client's values. We truly listen to what's important to you, the client. It doesn't matter what I think as a coach. It needs to have value to you. Your goals need to have a connection to yourself and what you think is important. So we display this unconditional positive regard for those values, for your own unique talents and gifts and strengths. And we truly believe that you as a client have the capacity to change and to sustain that change over time. Because if it's your idea, you're likely going to want to do it. So we honor each client is an expert in their own life. I don't have the same experiences that you have as the client. I have not lived your life. I can empathize with your life's experiences, but you're the expert in that life. You know you best. And so who am I to judge, right? So as coaches, we don't place value on an opinion over what your life is like. We're non-judgmental. Truly, there is positive regard for you as the client. and all interactions are done with that respect. Maya? Oh, that's me again. So at ECU, we take those overarching coaching guidelines, those tenets, those actual ethics that we abide by, and by taking our certification exams, we actually sign off that we will uphold those ethics. So at ECU, we are well-being coaches. We take those, we take the title of health coach, and we're calling ourselves well-being coaching because we want to have this holistic approach, because we're not just one part of ourselves, right? We're not just the physical part. We're not just the mind part. We're not just all worried about, you know, how we're going to pay for school or what we're going to do if our car breaks down. We're more than that. We're all of that, right? And more. So we provide students with this really unique opportunity to dive in, figure out what you need based on your own belief systems, and then co-create this plan, right? So we figure out what you want to do, and then use many, many tools to envision how you can get to that goal. So it's a bit of a process. It's a little work involved, very valuable when we get to that point.
Awesome. And Karen, are with your well-being coaches, I know that we do have graduate assistants that rotate who are earning their PhD, and they also provide counseling through the counseling center. Do you all have any students who occupy being well-being coaches? Is that all just the certified health coaches?
At this point, we do have certified peer educators, which are our well-being ambassadors. So so if you're a student who wants to be involved somehow in campus rec and wellness under, you know, this well-being umbrella, you can be trained as a certified peer educator. And there may be a client who has more of an interest in talking with a student than talking with myself or another coach, so we can match you up so that you feel completely comfortable with who you're speaking with.
Sounds great.
Yeah, good point. Thanks.
So what is mental health? And from a counseling base, we are addressing your mental health. And our mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So we're really looking at how we feel, how our brain is processing and working. So the cognitive areas of that, and then social well-being. I think a lot of times we forget that mental health really involves our relationships, and we can tell a lot about where our mental health stands based on the relationships that we have. So we want to consider thinking, acting, and feeling. So again, how we're cognitively processing information, what our behavior looks like, and how we're emotionally experiencing the various obstacles, challenges, or even positive things that we're going through in life. Always encourage students to think about the last major stressor or minor stressor they encountered, and then look at how they responded to that stressor. And that can give you a lot of insight about your mental health as it relates to handling stress. So we know that college is one of those times from the undergraduate level all the way up to grad and professional level where there is inevitable stress. But that stress does not have to always be inappropriate. Sometimes that stress is very appropriate, and we want to consider how we're handling that. And then again, how we're relating to others. So more often than not, especially around exam time or more challenging times in the world, such as the pandemic we're in right now, our interactions with others have changed. So we know a lot of students right now are in isolation and quarantine. They may not be able to see their family or connect with their friends like they have before. And how we're relating to other people and responding to that, again, is another way to assess mental health, and something that can be addressed through counseling. And then lastly, making choices. So decisions is a huge one. How do we go about making decisions? How do we move from one thing to the next thing? A lot of times that can come with its share of obstacles, and counseling is a place for you to not only process how you've historically made decisions, but learn how to go about considering making the right choices, making choices that are appropriate to you. And I always love adding in this cartoon here where it says, everybody else seems so happy and normal. I wish I wasn't the only person with mental health issues. And we see here that all three of these people are saying that. And that's just to highlight the fact that regardless of age, race, religion, background, no one is exempt from experiencing some sort of mental health concern, and the recognition that that is on a continuum from minor everyday stresses that are difficult to handle all the way up to major mental health disorders such as panic disorder or major depression. So, and how that translates into counseling is we think about counseling as a journey towards healing from past pain and hope for the unknown future to promote optimal mental health. So there may be some things that you have experienced in the past or present and have not properly processed them or confronted them or have the skills or tools to know how to do that. Counseling is that journey. And through counseling, we identify it as a very safe place to process those emotions, behaviors, fears, and pain. So again, it's non-judgmental, it's completely confidential with the exemptions of some of what our HIPAA or our standard governs, which is thoughts of harming yourself or others, abuse towards a child or elderly, or if the files are subpoenaed by the court system. Counseling helps to cultivate change and measurable objectives. And so you may come up with a plan with your counselor, and then you'll be able to revisit that plan to see how far you've actually progressed. So there is a measurement aspect of counseling. And just previously, as Karen said, with coaching, counseling is also client-centered. And so your therapist is recognizing that you are the expert of your life, and they have committed to doing no harm and making sure that your process is there and centered completely around you. And then it's unique to each client. So everyone who comes through the counseling center will be assessed and screened with a series of background questions with the recognition that no two people are the same, even if they are experiencing some of the same issues. And then just to highlight again that it's completely non-judgmental. So one of the hardest things I think for students with counseling is finding themselves at a place to share some of these thoughts and emotions, because we usually judge ourselves for having them. But understand that the counselor is trained in empathy and non-judgment. And so if that's a concern of yours, we hope to encourage you to recognize that the counseling space is designed to be non-judgmental.
Right. I am loving all the similarities, Maya, as we go through. It's so important, isn't it? You know, to point them out. And so, because there's such a good relationship here. So when we talk about coaching, we look at what well-being is, and we look at Dr. John Travis's illness wellness continuum, and give ourselves that same self-compassion and non-judgmental attitude like Maya was just talking about. We're so hard on ourselves. We're so judgy toward ourselves. But one of the reasons I like to show this illness wellness continuum is because you notice it goes left and it goes right. And if you imagine your life, you can probably relate to this, that you get sick, you get better, you have a great thing happen, you have maybe a not so great thing happen, and we go back and forth on this continuum. The whole idea is to try to stay to the right side of that wellness paradigm and aim for that high level of optimal wellness. So I like to use this continuum to explain well-being. So, you know, maybe we can give ourselves a little forgiveness on that, in that aspect, and understand that wellness and well-being is multidimensional, and it's not about one thing. It's not about your physicality of how you're feeling and if you're sick and then you get better, but it's also about your social connections. It's about your spiritual well-being. It's about your financial health. There's so many dimensions of wellness that make you, right? So that you're entirely whole. You're not just one component. So really, we talk about well-being as lifestyle medicine, that we make these little changes. Maybe we get better sleep. Maybe we choose an apple. Maybe we, choose to save a portion of our paychecks. And these are the components of lifestyle medicine that contribute to our optimal well-being. And then the whole idea is that it really doesn't matter what other people think of your wellness and your well-being. It's what you think about it. So it's subjective. So well-being at the end of the day is, how do I feel about myself, my life, my happiness? And that's, maybe a question to think about at some point. So coaching itself is to help you gain insight into you based on your values and your beliefs, like we had mentioned before. Coaches have these great resources to help you discover these things. We use visioning. We use the idea of what would your life look like if you were your very best self? Or perhaps if I give you a magic wand, what would your life look like if you could wave it and make everything exactly how you want it to be? Notice I didn't say perfect. I said exactly how you want it to be. So, when we start thinking about the good things and the way we want it to be, there's this theory. It's called Appreciative Inquiry. And I'll just throw this out there briefly. What we appreciates, meaning in the idea that it grows. So we throw it out there, right? We wave the magic wand and we imagine what's best for you. And then we create goals very similarly to Maya in the counseling department. We use SMART goals and we use the GROW model. So SMART goals, well, we'll just briefly mention them. They're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they are relevant, and they are time bound. So so that's, I don't want to take a lot of time to go with Maya. We could talk about that a lot, couldn't we? So, but those are definitely, if you have more interest in learning more about those, reach out to us. And then I really love the GROW model, because when you're thinking about making a change in your life, you have to look at the goal, and then you look at the reality of that goal. Does that make sense to you in your life? Is that actually going to happen? Do you have the resources to make this happen? Do you believe in yourself enough to make that happen? Many more components than that, but that's just to name a few. And then what are your obstacles, or what are your maybe your observances around this? Talk about what do you see as a barrier, perhaps, or maybe it's something that is not a barrier and you feel very optimistic about it. And then what will you do? The key to the GROW model is that very last sentence. What will you do to make it happen? So as coaches, we listen, we hear you. So often you don't feel heard. Well, as coaches, we truly hear you without judgment. And then our goal is to increase your happiness, really. And there's so many ways to do that. There are gratitude practices, there are happiness practices, and there's so much new research out there, which really makes me very excited, because it really proves this sort of this age-old wisdom. For example, being in nature for years, like 5,000 years. Think about the yogis or the ancient texts that I don't want to get into too much of the ancients, but when we think about that, they sort of intuitively knew, like that wisdom was inside of them. But then, now we have this research that talks about forest bathing and wind bathing and how good it is to be outside in nature for even 10 minutes, and how it improves your mood and can help sustain this happiness. And Maya, you're smiling and saying, no, you know what I'm talking about. And It's such exciting stuff. It's really great. I always say it's what my grandmother told me, and now I have the proof. So, and you can tell I have quite a bit of passion for these happiness practices.
No, I love that. I think it really speaks to the evolution of all of these practices, which is why I'm glad that students know they have options when it comes to their overall well-being. So let's get on into when to seek counseling. So I think it should be said that 40% of students, let me see, you all able to see this? Okay, yeah, okay. 40% of students fail to seek help when they recognize maybe that there is an issue or some sort of discomfort that they don't know how to navigate. 80% of students feel overwhelmed by their responsibilities as a student, which is a huge percentage because that overwhelmed feeling is what can lead to some mental health concerns, especially over a long period of time. 50% of students have struggled greatly from anxiety as a result of having struggled in school, so half. And when we think about anxiety, we think about that overwhelming stress in which it begins to interfere with the various areas of your life to the point where maybe you're worrying excessively before the test and after the test. Appetite and sleep patterns begin to change and shift. Relationships change due to these thoughts and these anxious worries. 30% of students reported that they had problems with schoolwork due to mental health issues. So again, a lot of times we can measure our mental health issues based on the impact the feeling has on major areas of our life. And we like to look at academic, social and personal areas. And then 50% of students rated their mental health below average or poor. So half of students may recognize that, you know what, I know my mental health isn't in the best place, yet we still battle a very low percentage of students who actually seek help for those issues. And then a mere 7% of parents reported that their students suffer from mental health issues in college. And I think this is important because it relies on the fact that communication styles change largely when students arrive to college, and they may not be sharing with their parents as much or any other trusted adults as much as they would have previously about the things that they're going through. And so I think that really highlights the importance when you consider when to seek counseling, knowing that that's a personal decision. So even at the counseling center, we are unable to take appointments on behalf of a parent calling, but we empower the student to take ownership of their own mental health. And again, just to highlight that confidentiality piece, in recognizing that fact, if you're over the age, if you're 18 and over, even if you started seeking counseling and your parent called the counseling center to see if you had been, we would not be authorized to share that information. So it truly is a confidential, very personal decision. And the other areas to consider, I know this looks like a lot, but when to seek counseling. So these are just some of the various presenting concerns, we'll call them, that we see students run into and come to counseling with. So stress and anxiety. Anxiety is the #1 national college mental health concern nationally, followed by depression at #2, right? So that overwhelming sadness more often than not. We have adjustment disorders and substance issues. So having difficulty just acclimating to college, especially now during a pandemic when so much has changed, or you may have switched from in-person learning to remote learning. Substance issues, many times students may begin using substances to deal with mental health issues, and then they end up facing what's called a comorbidity or co-occurring mental health concerns. And those substance issues can spiral out of control to the point where they really begin to impact your ability to succeed. Trauma and grief. So these are things that may have been traumatic, whether it be physical harm, sexual assault, maybe childhood abuse or current domestic violence abuse. And then grief, which is the loss of maybe a loved one or the loss of something that was very important to you, loss of a home, loss of a pet. Roommate conflict, I put twice because that's a huge one. For the first time, many students are having to live with other people, and conflict arises from that. And students really can navigate that in counseling, especially exploring how they have handled conflict in the past, or maybe how their family has handled conflict and how that impacts their ability to do so now. Self-harm, so suicidality. Suicide is the third leading cause of death amongst college students nationally, which is, I mean, when you think about 1, 2, 3, that's the major concern for students, as well as self-harm, which is cutting or any type of harm to self. Anger management, so really having a difficult time controlling that emotion. Establishing independence, eating disorders, loneliness, relationship issues, and end of a relationship. All of these things and more are reasons why students might seek counseling. So if you are concerned or you recognize that a student may be experiencing some of these issues, that may be, and it's impacting your life in a major way, that may be an indication that it's time to seek professional help through counseling.
Thanks, Maya. So important. So when to seek coaching? When you think about all the things that Maya just said, if I'm going to just be very, very clear, seek counseling. If you feel those feelings, those thoughts, seek counseling. When you seek coaching is when you have an interest to improve your overall well-being. We talked about that, that holistic approach, that you're more than one piece of yourself, that you're all these different pieces. And if you take a look at the triangle, what if I said to you that you can only pick 2? So perhaps you want to have good grades, but you also want to get enough sleep. So maybe your social life isn't where you want it to be. And, part of optimal well-being is to have good social relationships, good social connectedness in your community. And so that's going to suffer. On the other hand, maybe you have this really strong social life and you still want to have good grades, but then you don't get enough sleep. And so then sleep patterns might change. Your sleep hygiene might be lacking. You might not be getting to bed on time, or your sleep environment might not be healthy. Maybe when you have a great social life, you are eating very late at night, and that will impact your sleep as well. So all of these components are involved in creating this harmony for your life. So when you feel like maybe one is lacking, coaching can help you figure out where to improve on the other corner, so to speak. And also think of your wellness, your well-being as a wheel. And if all the components of you are working perfectly, working optimally, then there is no flat side in your wheel. But if you're not getting enough sleep, maybe that little component is deflating that part of the wheel, and maybe your wheel doesn't roll anymore. So maybe you need help figuring out how to make your wheel roll again. So, we also talk about schedule and workload expectations and relationships as well. We have some resources to help you with, maybe you need some study help. Well, we'll get you in contact perhaps with the tutoring center if that's something that you show an interest in. So change can be challenging. Like Maya said, you come to school, it could be every piece of your life that feels different, right? You're living with someone new, or maybe you're living alone and you're missing your family. You're eating different foods, perhaps. You're a different sleep schedule. And everything, like Maya said, is different because of COVID. So maybe that's affecting you. So coaching can help pump up the little pieces of your life that need to be pumped up to help your wheel to roll. And then I want to be very clear what coaching is not, because it's just as important to know when to seek counseling, when to seek other avenues, because coaches are not licensed therapists. Coaching's not counseling, or it's not even consulting. We don't tell you what to do. And we're not interested, well, that came out wrong. We are very interested in you. We are not interested in looking backward. I should have just finished my sentence, right? Because it would have been clear. But we are forward looking. So we don't want to dive deep into the past, because that's therapy. So we're not therapists. We're not going to be creating nutrition prescriptions for you. We're not going to be creating meal plans, although there's some state to state or state by state differences with meal planning. But as a rule, coaches are not going to be creating a diet for you. We're not going to be creating a prescription for nutrition for you. It's very important to know that coaches are not self-serving. We don't coach you for the purpose of selling supplements or a product in any way. So there's none of that. We do not diagnose you. If we, as coaches, feel you need something more than we can give, we will refer you out to a medical professional who can help diagnose. But we do not diagnose. We don't sit there and say, well, we know what's wrong with you. This is it, and let's go fix it. We don't think that. We don't think you need necessarily fixing, because remember, as I said earlier, coaches believe you have the answers already inside of you. And then, of course, going along with that, we're not trying to analyze you. There's no evaluation as far as fixing you.
So we can tag team this one, Karen. And we're moving on to where. So where are counseling and coaching? And that's kind of a figurative where, but I think this is a great display of the differences between therapy or counseling and coaching that I think would be helpful when a student is deciding what course of action they may want to take. So I'll start with therapy. If we think about therapy, really addressing the past to present. Okay, and while there are some future entities and some future thoughts that will be contained in therapy, it really begins and is rooted in the past. So what this means is that it's a treatment tool. So a treatment of various mental illnesses such as anxiety or depression. And when I say treatment, this may entail processing the past, whereas, for example, mental illnesses have a biological component. So one of the questions we may ask you are you aware of any family history of mental illness, right? So again, history. This allows us to have a recognition of what your treatment may entail. And then moving on to healing from past trauma. So we know that students come here in their unique ways with their unique experiences. And their life didn't start when they arrived at ECU, but it started when they were born, how they grew up in their family, going to school, high school, elementary, all of that. And so there may have been some trauma or some major struggles that they've encountered that has caused them to feel, for lack of a better word, stuck. And counseling is a great way to process some of that past trauma and allow you to heal and get past those experiences so that you can thrive. And then treatment, again, of addiction or abuse. So like we said earlier, we have licensed clinical addiction specialists, and the counseling center has what's called the CRC, which is the Collegiate Recovery Community. And this is actually a really awesome community in which students who are facing recovery from addiction or abuse can have a place to go. They can re-engage with people who are also in recovery, and they can kind of get, quote, back on track towards some of their future goals, right? Some of the methods that we may use are play therapy, therapeutic art. So there may be times in sessions where your therapist uses a tool such as collages or drawing, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, all the letters, the various therapies and techniques that our counselors have been trained in are used during therapy. And then we think about that goal being to establish a stable, balanced life. So for example, if you were to break your leg and you find that you're on crutches and you have this limp, right? Your goal when you go to physical therapy or as you use your crutches is to get back walking upright, right? And try to reduce that limp and what that looks like and how it may interfere with your life as much as possible. We can consider mental health in the same way. That anxiety or that depression may interfere with your ability to get up and engage in school or show up for your friends and family. And so we want to reestablish a stable, balanced life so that you can experience the best of life. And so that's the past. It contains some of the present, and then I'll let Karen take over with how coaching resides in the future.
Great. Yes. Thank you. And always with the same goal, right, Maya? That best life. Take the step. Get just take that first step, and that's to be on your way. And so coaching, we really do look at the future. We want to figure out what's going to be best for you, and we co-create together, right? We make these plans together, and we might talk about a life's mission statement, and we work together to set and achieve goals. Remember, I'm not going to decide what those goals are for you, but if they're important to you, I can help you figure out how to get those goals, to attain those goals, and to increase motivation. And I love that Maya talked about some of the methods used in therapy. And I'll just bring up a couple of points. When we look toward the future, the past is still a part of us, right? When you think about that, you don't come to coaching and say, oh, I'm not going to think a single thing about the past. However, there's a way to use what you've learned in the past to figure out if it will work again, what didn't work about it, and if it can be maybe modified to work for the future. And there are many, many different examples for that, but perhaps let's just use the example of dieting, because that seems to be a big one. It's January, right? New Year's resolutions. So perhaps you've tried to diet in the past, and we might ask the question as a coach, well, how did that work for you in the past? And the question is to help you think about how it could work for you in the future, right? So maybe we discover that, I'm just pulling this off the top of my head, maybe we discover that in the past, if you tried to diet, you eliminated things from your diet. Maybe you eliminated all the things that you like, or eliminated something, and that just felt awful, right? Because you're denying yourself. So maybe looking forward, we might come up with a way to not eliminate things, but to add something good. So instead of eliminating foods that you like, figure out what you do like, and maybe you add an apple, or maybe you need to add more water. So once you start seeing these small successes, then your belief in yourself will grow. And that's how we get even more successful. So some of the methods that we use to figure out what works best for you are, off the top, just for an example, breathing strategies, learning how to control the breath to calm the mind and the body, to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming part of your nervous system, instead of always feeling like you're in a mode of stress, fight, flight, freeze or freak out. And maybe visioning. We talked about that earlier, visioning your best self. There are methods such as tapping, which is a way to calm the nervous system. And then we don't use cognitive behavioral therapy, but we also use cognitive behavioral coaching. It's a little tweak of cognitive behavioral therapy. It does work. So yeah, coaching is about possibilities. Coaching is about what it could be. So that's why we say coaching looks to the future.
Awesome. Okay, on the downslope here, why seek counseling? And I many reasons why you should seek counseling, but one of the things that I'll point out is this quote that says, "It's amazing to think how much time we spend looking after our physical health and how little time we spend looking after the health of the mind." So I just want to highlight a reason why we should seek counseling is because there's a mind-body connection that's constantly happening. Our body's being run by the condition of our mind. And so we want to kind of start with that governing body of the mind to enhance our thinking, enhance our behavior, our relationships, and other things that our life and that balance we talked about earlier really depends on. And just to highlight some of those other benefits and why we may seek counseling, we've said it already, but I'll repeat it again. Decrease anxiety, resolve past traumas, relieve stress, increase assertiveness. So there may be some things you recognize you need to add to your life to create that balance. And counseling is a great way to explore different ways and skills to do that. The ability to set boundaries, so recognizing what you let in and out of your world and how to navigate and manage that. You know, a lot of what counseling is it's a way to gain management skills of self with the most important relationship, which is the relationship with yourself. So again, better relationships and then regaining emotional balance, you know, allowing ourselves to be congruent in how we're responding to things. And then on a personal level, maybe greater self-confidence in areas such as that. And I just highlighted Kerry Washington, who really spoke in Essence Magazine, where her quote says, "Learning how to love myself and my body is a lifelong process, as counseling can start you on that process. But I definitely don't struggle the way I used to. Therapy helped me realize that maybe it's okay for me to communicate my feelings. Instead of literally stuffing them down with food, maybe it's okay for me to express myself." And I love this quote because if you realize it says, therapy helped me realize that maybe, right? And so the treatment introduces you to possibilities. And it's good to highlight that counseling is not, and counselors are not advice giving, but they serve more so as guides towards the life that you want to live in that overall balance. So why seek counseling? There are many reasons, but again, it goes back to creating that balance in a potentially unstable life.
I love that quote, Maya.
Thank you.
That's great. So why seek coaching? Well, once again, I'm going to repeat myself. It's about envisioning what could be. And sometimes we don't even know that we're coming up with something. Sometimes it just, coaching can help you get in tune with who you are. And sometimes things pop out of nowhere. So I put this in here, the next two slides, because I think they're kind of fun. These wheelie shoes, they came out of a midlife crisis, and it came out of a daydream for the idea, why can't I just drift away from my life? So the wheelies came out of this daydream. And then the next one, we talk about life is good. I think you can, I wasn't going to read the whole slide because I figured probably while I was talking, people read it. And the next one is life is good. And this little character named Jake, this little stick figure. And, so these two brothers, they develop these shirts and they love them and they know they're great, but nobody else knows they're great because all they're doing is trying to sell them on the streets of Boston. But all of a sudden they come up with this idea of this cartoon character out of nowhere. Life is good is born. So it's really a nice idea to start envisioning what could be and examining the possibilities and brainstorming things, even if they seem outlandish or if they seem like they're, oh, that will never happen. Well, why not? What could make them happen? And that's what coaching is all about, just really being okay with, one, the not knowing, and then sometimes it's just relaxing into your mind and body to let what's already in there come out, because we have great ideas inside of us. We just have to be able to sort of activate the mind to figure them out. So there's two examples of people who were able to do that.
Those are great. And I think on the coaching end, the recognition that I can navigate and learn through counseling how to deal with the fear that may come up in doing that.
Oh, and I love that. In coaching and counseling, I think this is such a great collaboration, such a great pairing. Yeah, I love that you say that, Maya.
Definitely. Okay, so we're wrapping up here, how to engage with counseling. On the left here are just some of our services. We offer skills workshops, group counseling, of course, brief individual therapy or counseling, the CRC, as I mentioned earlier, for students who are entering recovery, outreach programming such as this, the FYI series, so getting you the psychoeducation that you can use to share with others and to help yourself. We have urgent care appointments. So this is after hours crisis support. So you'll see on the next slide, our hours are from 8 to 5. But if you do encounter some sort of mental health crisis, you can call our center. You'll be prompted to press 2, and then you'll be connected to an on-call counselor. Case management. So what that means is maybe you started counseling, but you're moving and services are no longer free, as they are for all fully enrolled students. Our case manager can help monitor what your services have been, and then referral to another source, maybe where your hometown is or where you'll be moving to. And then consultative services. So these are, let's say you need some information or you want to ask about how to handle addressing counseling with a friend, we can consult with you there. And I would encourage you to check out our website that contains all of these services and more, where you can learn about what we do. We've got a lot of apps that are free for download, online self-help resources, and then links to online screening so that you can kind of screen yourself with some of these concerns, PTSD, eating disorders, and others. And then FAQ and upcoming outreach events and programs. And we're located in 137 Umstead. That's across the way from the police station and next to the student center. We are closed now. We're only offering remote services. So you can still call our center, 328-6661, to schedule a remote telehealth appointment. And we've been consistently still serving students through that method as well.
Yes, definitely. All of our coaching, I'm glad that you brought that up. All of our coaching right now is virtual and has been very successful that way. So if they're, I know we're all getting used to being always on a platform here, but I think it's something that people are getting used to, and it's very successful. It's not face to face, but it can be just like it. So how to engage with coaching? If you need to get a referral form, you can find that on the Campus Rec and Wellness website. There's a Live Well tab, and you just pull that down and you see well-being coaching. And then you just fill out a very short form, which is basically your name and your contact information and what the concern might be. And we'll get back to you within 24 hours. Depending on the day that it gets submitted to us, it will be that day. And then we have an initial session where we talk about your goals, why you came to us. And that can be many different things for many people, so I won't go too deep into that, but just know that that's a very easy, hopefully relaxed chat, just to have a chat. And then we determine a path based on where you want to go. So we might collaborate, as I mentioned before, with other departments. We might collaborate with tutoring or dining hall or anything else that might come up at the time. And then we do have referrals. If we sit down together and we talk, and there's a need for counseling, then we will refer you to counseling and connect you, even if it's we have to do it sort of in person, like where we do it virtually and contact counseling together, but we can do that. And the important thing is, I think, to know that referrals are sometimes necessary, and not to be too hard on yourself or to attach some meaning to that, because the whole goal is that we are all here to help you, and that's the ultimate goal that we want. So by any means necessary, we will help you, right? So we may decide on 4 sessions. You may decide on 2. There's an exit plan so that we can send you on your way with a successful plan. And then there's also some follow-up involved if maybe you need to revisit that plan, or maybe you want to sign up for some more sessions. There is no cost to coaching.
Which is the great thing, so accessible. And so I know you mentioned this, but I just wanted to flash the website here for anyone to access the referral form.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's, I was trying to remember if that was going to be the next slide. So yes, there it is.
Sounds good. So just to recap here, therapy, coping, making sense of the past, introducing stability, and addressing your needs. And again, I think that overlapped with coaching, as this is a neutral, safe space of non-judgment and support. And then it's client-centered, meant to listen to you and allow you to be the expert in your life.
Yes, absolutely. And coaching is about thriving and working toward a positive future where you can increase your own happiness and your own feelings of satisfaction with your life. And, you know, we can't do it alone. So we do it together.
Definitely. I love it. So much overlap, yet so many different needs that counseling can address and coaching can address. I'm not sure if we have any attendees. So for questions, you can absolutely reach out to our offices. We have references here, and I will close this out so that we can say our goodbyes and our closing. Okay. That was awesome, Karen. I learned a little bit more as well about coaching. But I hope, if anything, this encourages you to feel more empowered in your decision that has to be made about your future. And again, we are Wellness and the Counseling Center and other ECU departments, we work together for you. So know that you can correspond with both places, and we can hopefully provide you with the necessary answers and guidance towards what you needed. Anything you'd wrap us up with as well, Karen?
I just want anyone who's listening to know that my goal and my optimistic hope for this session is that you have no doubt in your mind that you have resources available to you to really put you on the path for where you want to go. And yeah, just thank you, Maya, for asking me to do this with you. It's been so much fun.
It has. This is awesome. Yeah. So again, that's our FYI series. We encourage you to check out more programs. This will be downloaded, this video, and uploaded to the Wellness YouTube page, and we hope to put it on the Counseling Center website as well. So take care of yourselves, enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you later. Thanks.
Bye.